It's true. As your next mayor, I will freeze your rent.
Paid for by Zohran for NYC.
In order to get to this point of closing the gap on both this fiscal year and the next fiscal year, we are forced to raid the rainy day fund, the retiree health benefits trust reserve, and to increase property taxes.
America, remember when Zohran Mamdani promised you free bus rides, free childcare, and affordable housing? Well, he just unveiled a $127 billion budget.
We will be forced onto a much more damaging path of last resort, raising property taxes and raiding our reserves.
The last time New York City raised property taxes was after terrorists attacked the city. But Mamdani's been in office for 42 days, and he's already breaking the streak. But here's the kicker. Governor Kathy Hochul, a Democrat, just told him absolutely not on his plan to tax the rich. And the only tool he has left is your property taxes. What is up, guys? Tyson DeLaCruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. New York City, Zohran Mamdani. Promise everything for free, realize you can't pay for it, then raid taxpayers' wallets while calling it a last resort. Let me show you exactly how this scam works. Let me take you guys back on the campaign trail because this is where the con originally started. Zohran Mamdani ran for mayor, promising to make New York City affordable again. Free MTA buses for everyone, universal childcare, government-run grocery stores to lower food costs. And when people ask, how are you going to pay for it? His answer was simple. We're going to tax the rich.
The first path repairs the structural imbalance between the city and the state. We want to work with Albany to raise personal income taxes by 2% on the 33,000 New Yorkers earning more than $1 million a year, and to raise corporate taxes on the most profitable corporations.
There was just a tiny problem with that plan. Mayors don't control state income tax. The power belongs to the governor and the state legislator. So you people who got fooled into what Mamdani was selling you, Mamdani's entire campaign platform, every promise that he made was based on something that he literally could not do without approval. And you New York liberals fell for it. This is Socialist 101, folks. Promise everything free. Tell people the only reason they're struggling is because rich people aren't paying enough. Get elected, then realize you can't actually deliver on anything. That's worse than eating gas station sushi. So how do you do it? You raise taxes on the middle class instead and call it, this is my last resort, okay?
One energetic rally does not get me to change my positions, I assure you. But I do hear people's voices. I process what everybody says, but I'm also have to balance governing this state and making sure that those people who are actually the reason we have a generous, supportive budget that helps lift people up, it's their revenues that we tax. 1.5% of New Yorkers cover about a third of our budget. That's enormous. I'm concerned about outmigration of people who are the ones who are supporting our budget. I cannot make up for that with middle-class tax increases.
And here's Governor Hochul, a Democrat, looking at Mamdani's plan and saying, oh, heck no. She's worried about wealthy people leaving New York City, which she should be. She points out that 1.5% of New Yorkers pay a third of the state budget. If those people leave, where's that money gonna come from now? The middle class. That's where it's going to come from. And she's not doing that. So Zohran Mamdani's entire plan just collapsed. The governor said, no, his first path is dead, and now he's stuck with what he calls a second path, which, my friends, is just a fancy way of saying he's going to raise your property taxes. Now, let's talk about this budget because the numbers here are absolutely insane. Mamdani just unveiled a $127 billion budget deficit for New York City. Let me put that in perspective for you here, guys. The entire state of Florida, which has 22 million people, operates a $117 billion budget. New York City has 8 million people and needs $10 billion more than Florida to actually function. Make it make sense.
Mayor Zohran Mamdani is set to present his first preliminary budget this afternoon at 1:30 down at City Hall, which will provide a window into his priorities. By law, the budget has to be balanced, meaning that revenues must equal or exceed spending. Ahead of that presentation at City Hall this afternoon, yesterday Governor Kathy Hochul announced she is giving the mayor $1.5 billion in state money over the next 2 fiscal years to help plug the city's 2-year deficit of $7 billion. So do the math. That means the city still must close a $5.5 billion hole.
And here's where the scam gets exposed. Mamdani inherited a $5.4 billion budget deficit from Eric Adams. That's bad. But you know what he did? He increased the budget from last year's $122 billion to this year's $127 billion. That is a $5 billion increase in spending. So let me get this straight. You inherited a deficit and your solution is to spend more money. What? Then you turn around and say, because of this budget deficit, I have to raise taxes. No, brother. No. You created the deficit by spending more money that you don't even have.
We've also just received information that new data in the state's school aid formula will bring an additional $97 million to New York City on a recurring basis. All of that brings the fiscal deficit down to $5.4 billion.
But wait, didn't he just say the deficit was $7 billion 2 weeks ago? What happened to the other $1.6 billion?
Less than a month ago, Mamdani raised the alarm that the city would be facing a $12 billion budget gap over 2 fiscal years, saying the only way out of this crisis would be to raise taxes on millionaires and corporations.
Oh, that's right. A month ago, Mamdani was screaming about $12 billion deficit. Then 2 weeks later, he admitted they forgot to factor in Wall Street bonuses and year-end tax revenue. So it's actually only $7 billion. Now it's $5.4 billion after the Hochul bailout. So which is it? Is it $12 billion? Is it $7 billion? Is it $5.4 billion? Or are you just making up numbers to justify whatever tax increase you want?
The Citizens Budget Commission, which is a nonpartisan fiscal watchdog group, sent a letter to the Mamdani administration warning against raising taxes to fill a budget gap. The group says the city's fiscal challenges are a result of excessive spending rather than insufficient revenues.
Last year, city tax revenue grew over 8%. Still, we couldn't afford our spending because we layer on more and more programs. We expand programs, some of them very good, but we don't exercise the political will to shrink programs that don't improve New Yorkers' lives.
Translation here, you have a spending problem, not a revenue problem. But Mamdani doesn't want to cut spending. He wants to raise your taxes. Now, let me tell you about something called Tin Cup Day. This is where Mamdani's desperation really shows. Every year, New York City mayors go to Albany with their tin cups out, begging the state legislators for money. I guess is a tradition. But Mamdani took it to a whole new level here.
So I am encouraged by the conversations we've been having, not only with the governor, but also with legislative leaders in Albany. And these are conversations about putting the city back on firm financial footing. When I was standing here in this room weeks ago announcing the fact that our conclusions were coming to the same level of assessment, at the very least, as the previous city controller, the current city controller, and the current state controller, we also said that we would then be updating those assessments as we got more information.
Listen to how he frames this. I'm encouraged by the conversations that we've been having. That is political speak for I am begging, I am on my knees, and they're not giving me what I want. He's asking Albany to raise state income taxes so he doesn't have to raise property taxes. And here's the problem. It is an election year, and Hochul is up for election. And she don't want that smoke. Hochul is not about to commit political suicide by raising taxes in an election year. She's already worried about wealthy people leaving New York City. So she knows if she raises taxes even more, she'll accelerate the exodus. And when the tax base leaves, who do you think's going to pay for all this? The middle class.
Hochul now seeming to step in to give an extra boost, and if approved by state lawmakers in a state budget, would give the city an additional $1 billion for fiscal year 2026, and then an additional $510 million every following year as reoccurring revenue.
So Hochul threw Zohran Mamdani a bone, $1.5 billion over 2 years. But here's what's interesting. She also promised money to Buffalo, which is facing its own budget crisis. So this isn't just about helping Zohran Mamdani. This is about helping Hochul buy political goodwill across the state while she's running for re-election.
I think she's trying to get ahead of, rallies and pushes and cornering around tax the rich. On the flip side, he gets all this money that mayors don't usually get to do with and use for programs that he's been campaigning on. It seems like a win for him. It seems like a win for her. And hopefully it's a win for New York State taxpayers as well.
But the deeper question here, is it a win for taxpayers? Because even with this $1.5 billion bailout, Mamdani still has a $5.4 billion deficit. So where's the rest of the money coming from? Now, here's the part that should terrify every New York City homeowner. Property taxes. The last time New York City raised property taxes was September 11th, 2001, after terrorists attacked the city, after the World Trade Centers fell. Since then, New York has been through the 2008 financial crisis, C-19 pandemic, multiple budget shortfalls. They still did not raise property taxes. Bloomberg didn't raise them. De Blasio didn't raise them. Adams didn't raise them. But Zohran.
This would effectively be a tax on working and middle-class New Yorkers who have a median income of $122,000. The second path also requires us to raid our reserves. It would mean withdrawing $980 million from our city's rainy day fund in fiscal year 2026 and $229 million from the Retiree Health Benefit Trust in fiscal year 2027. These are steps that have been taken before, but only in moments of extraordinary external crisis.
And listen how he frames this. This would effectively be a tax on the working and middle-class New Yorkers who have a median income of $122,000. He's admitting that this tax increase will hit the middle class, the same people he promised to help, the same people he said would benefit from taxing the rich. So what is the extraordinary external crisis right now? There's not one. The crisis is that Mamdani promised all this free crap that he can't deliver on, and now he needs your money to pay for it.
The second path also requires us to raid our reserves. It would mean withdrawing $980 million from our city's rainy day fund in fiscal year 2026 and $229 million from the Retiree Health Benefit Trust in fiscal year 2027.
That's money that was supposed to be for actual emergencies. We're talking about hurricanes, terrorist attacks, pandemics, but meet the Zohran Mamdani wants to spend it on his regular budget. This is like maxing out your credit cards, then raiding your kid's college fund to pay for daily expenses. It's not just irresponsible. It's setting up future disasters, just kicking the can down the road.
New York values dictate that we look out for people. We take care of our seniors. We don't take away their health care. We don't take away food from children. So I've been in 16 elections now, Jessica. I know how to do this. And this will be one that's very interesting.
And here's what makes this even more infuriating. Mamdani is threatening to raise your property taxes while he's still spending billions of dollars on illegal immigrants. Free housing and hotels, free food, healthcare, education, no plan to stop spending, but American citizens who pay taxes, his constituents. Sorry, we're broke. We need to raise your property taxes. Now, let me show you the gaslighting technique that Mamdani is using, because this is classic socialist manipulation.
And there are two paths that we can walk. One that offers long-term stability, and a second one with significant pain that we deeply hope to avoid. The first path repairs the structural imbalance between the city and the state. We want to work with Albany to raise personal income taxes by 2%, on the 33,000 New Yorkers earning more than $1 million a year, and to raise corporate taxes on the most profitable corporations. And we know that for far too long, New Yorkers have given far more to the state than what we have received in return. It is time to end the drain.
This is also a sales presentation trick here. Path one is the fair and sustainable path. That's taxing the rich and ending what he calls the drain, where New York City gives more to the state than it gets back. Path two is a painful path of last resort. that's raising property taxes on you. But notice how he frames this. Path 1 is good. It's great. Path 2 is bad. And it's not his fault that he has to take path 2. It's Albany's fault. It's Hochul's fault. And it's the state legislator's fault. Everyone else is at fault but him.
I am encouraged by the conversations we're having with Albany about how we can bridge that $7 billion gap for these next 2 fiscal years. I'm encouraged by where we are, and I'll tell you that I think that the most straightforward ways of dealing with this are structural measures, whether it be the taxation of the wealthiest New Yorkers, increasing taxes on the most profitable corporations, as well as by ending the drain, the relationship between the city and the state.
The state legislator is not going to raise income taxes on an election year. So this first path he keeps talking about is not happening. It was never going to happen. He knew that when he ran for mayor. This is the classic socialist bait and switch. Promise everything free, get elected, then say, oh, no, wait, my bad. We can't afford that because insert excuse here. But we can afford to raise your taxes. Funny how that works, right?
Mamdani lost a lot of his momentum when he said that budget gap shrunk from $12 billion to $7 billion. But Governor Kathy Hochul still stepping in to provide him with that extra $1.5 billion if approved by the state lawmakers. But right now, the state lawmakers on both sides, on the Senate side and the Assembly side, they're likely still to pass one House budgets that do increase taxes on millionaires and corporations. But Governor Kathy Hochul still holding that line. And I think she's hoping with this $1.5 billion that she's giving to Mamdani that he'll be maybe back off a little bit on his push to tax the rich.
She doesn't want him holding rallies and creating political pressure during her re-election campaign. So she's buying him off with state money, hoping he'll quietly raise property taxes instead of making political heat for himself. So let me ask the people who voted for Zohran Mamdani, where's all the free stuff? Where's the free buses? Where's the free childcare? Where's the free government grocery stores? Free MTA buses, abandoned, kaput, can't afford it due to the budget deficit. The budget deficit that he made worse by increasing spending to $5 billion. Government grocery stores, forgotten. Polymarket beat you to it. Logistically impossible. Socialist fantasy. Affordable housing, getting worse. Property taxes are going up, which means rents are going to go up too. He's campaigning on making New York affordable, and he's literally making it less affordable.
I cannot do that to the middle class and the struggling New Yorkers. So this is the balance. I mean, this is my position. I'm always having conversations with the leaders of the legislature and regular communication, especially about how we're dealing with the shutdown and the impact on New Yorkers. I mean, these are real problems that I think it's far worse than anyone anticipated.
Even the Democrats are calling out how unrealistic his promises were. This person at a rally said free busing, free childcare, that's pretty ambitious. The state is in serious fiscal trouble as well. Translation, you're living in a fantasy.
These are all people that want to promote communism in our city, take over our privately owned bodegas and grocery stores, cause our housing to be run by government. We've all seen what happened with Nitro when government runs housing. Take away, our buildings from our landlords and make them into government-run buildings. This is not America. This is not capitalism. This is communism.
She's right. Zohran Mamdani didn't run to manage the city. He ran to implement his ideology. And when the ideology crashes and burns into economic reality, it's the taxpayers who pay the price. America, Zohran Mamdani promised you free buses, free childcare, and affordable housing. He said he'd pay for it by taxing the rich, but he's the mayor. He doesn't have control over state income taxes. His entire campaign was based on something that he couldn't do. Governor Hochul told him no, she won't raise state taxes in the election year. So Mamdani unveiled a $127 billion budget, increased spending by $5 billion, and now he's threatening to raise your property taxes for the first time since 9/11. That is a 23-year streak that he's about to break after just 42 days in office. But the real last resort would be cutting the billions spent on illegal immigrants, ending sanctuary city policies, and prioritizing American citizens. He won't do that because ideology matters more than fiscal responsibility. So, New York, you voted for free stuff. You're getting tax hikes. You voted for affordability. You're getting the most expensive city in America. You voted for a Democratic socialist. You're getting exactly what socialism always delivers: broken promises and empty wallets. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comments section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.